What's going on, everyone? Mitch from RespectMyRegion.com here with another episode of the Morning Joint. We're bringing you the latest or recap of the latest in cannabis and music news that have been published on our site and around the web over the last week. For those of you that are subscribed to our Morning Joint newsletter, that slid into your inbox around 9 a.m. this morning, as it does every Monday. If you're not subscribed, hit RespectMyRegion.com, subscribe to the newsletter. If you can't figure out how to do it on there, shoot us a DM personally or just email info@respectmerchant.com. We'll make sure that we're getting that news in your inbox every Monday. So with that being said, we've got cannabis and music topics over the last week and upcoming this week to go over. The first being MJ Biz Con / Weed Week is here. That's right. This is the week. It is November. It's getting chilly, and we are headed to the desert where it is still chilly. For those of you that have not checked the weather, it's going to be like, I think 39 to like 60 degrees in Las Vegas this week. So bring those jackets, man. It's about to be chilly out there. MJ Biz Con is happening at the Las Vegas Convention Center Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of this week. Many people are coming in on Tuesday. There's after parties lined up from Tuesday all the way to Friday, with Thursday being the big night, meaning the most parties and the largest after parties are going on. Fairchild's bringing the Shangri-La event. They're bringing the Golden Ticket party back to Vegas with their Shangri-La event. High Times is throwing an event at Brooklyn Bowl with Method Man and Redman, and we are a part of our favorite event for Thursday. No disrespect, shout out the homies at High Times, shout out the homies at Fairchild, but the ladies behind Hush are coming out from Chicago to Las Vegas to throw the Hush House Las Vegas event. RMR is the official media partner there. We'll be doing a live podcast at the event. We'll be doing a little bit of red carpet interviews. They've got a really dope, I'm not going to take credit for this. They've got a really dope speakeasy event set up. Vanessa and Kay over at Hush have been working pretty tirelessly on this. They got some dope sponsors lined up. We had the Dab Slab on our podcast on Friday. They'll be in the building. Canna was on our podcast a couple of weeks ago. They'll be on the building. For those that are looking for tickets, you can also make a donation to the 40 Tons Foundation. There's a link in the description with some more information on the Hush House event. It is on Thursday, 8 p.m. to midnight in Las Vegas after MJ Biz Con. We're going to be there. Are you? We'd love to see you guys there. Coming up next on Cannabis News, Cookies adds the 8th brand to their roster with the East Coast-based Gumbo. Gumbo is, I didn't realize this until I started doing some diving in, that Gumbo is a full-on brand. I knew Gumbo was a strain. I've heard quite a bit of rappers shout it out, talk about it in interviews and on songs. When we were out in New York in March, at some of the underground lounges and shops, Gumbo was really the main New York or the localized strain product that we were really seeing pop up everywhere and getting kind of the same hype and appeal as a lot of the stuff from the West Coast is getting imported out there. So people were really messing with the Gumbo. Gumbo, the brand, is owned by the power couple Alexis Major and Luca Brasi. I remember Luca was a part of the Dipset crew. Joel, Santana, Cameron, Jim Jones were always shouting out Luca. He was not a rapper, so it was like back in my early years of just being a Dipset fan, it was like, who is this dude? He's obviously named, got to take the moniker from the mobster, Luca Brasi, but I didn't quite know who this dude was. He was always getting shouted out. Seems to be, reading between the lines, he was involved in, some of the business, some of the fashion and many things behind the scene that made Dipset movement what it was. And obviously he was heavily involved in cannabis. Him and his wife, Alexis, have started this Gumbo brand, and they've built quite the reputable following and name for themselves in the traditional market. And now linking up with Cookies, they just brought the Madison Square Gumbo strain to lemonade and Cookies dispensaries across California today. Over the weekend, I know it dropped early at Cookies Maywood and Cookies Hayward, but I believe all Cookies and Lemonade locations across the state got that Madison Square Gumbo collaboration between Cookies and Gumbo in stores today. Next up on news, we interviewed the legendary Chemdog at the Canna Provisions cultivation facility. That interview, it's again in the description below. It's on our LinkedIn and it is on YouTube. But Greg Karnowski, I was able to meet him, aka Chemdog, when I was in Massachusetts. Did a little interview with him. It's doing well. We've got some great feedback on it. It was just honestly great conversation to talk to a legend. Chemdog is the originator of the Chemdog strain and the Chem 91, and that's the basis of like OG Kush, sour diesel, GMO, and all the iterations of GMO. So much of cannabis, whether you're a cultivator or a smoker, a lot of that, if you follow that lineage, Chem's influence on where weed has been and where it's currently at is massive. So it was incredible to just have a conversation with dude, walk around the grow, talk with him about growing in the illicit market, to getting raided by the feds, to now having some of his original clones of his original Chem 91 cuts being grown in a recreational facility. It was pretty mind-blowing conversation to have, and I could just see the joy, and this dude was amazed when I talked to him. So anyways, that interview's in the description. Definitely check it out. Next up, we did a feature on Jokes Up Ice Cream Dispensary in LA. So Jokes Up is, much like how Cookies is a house of brands, Jokes Up is the same thing. A lot of people know Runts, the Runts crew, the Runts brand. Jokes Up is the machine behind that. They've also been a part of many other brands. We've covered a couple in the past, Frosties. There's a couple under there. Ice Cream is their dispensary chain that's popping up around California. So there's a little feature to learn a little bit more about that. Next up in cannabis news, you can see how cannabis legalization did at the ballot this year. So they were voting for adult use cannabis in North Dakota, South Dakota, Missouri, and Arkansas, and Maryland. I almost forgot that. Maryland and Missouri voted yes, so they're getting adult use recreational cannabis coming to their states. South Dakota, North Dakota, and Arkansas all voted down. The vote failed in all those states. I know in Arkansas, from what I read, there was quite a bit of criticism from the patients and the medical community, being that they didn't want this particular bill to be voted in due to the benefits it had for well-funded and big business, big cannabis, if you will. A lot of the people pushing and lobbying for this bill were established, well-funded medical companies. And so a lot of the people said, hey, if this passes, this is going to greatly benefit them and put a lot of the community and traditional market players at a disadvantage. So in Arkansas, we saw opposition from, your traditional Bible Belt people that are just buying into the stigma, anti-weed, but then also it seemed like a lot of the cannabis community was not a fan of that. So not surprising to see Arkansas fail. I can't remember if it was South Dakota, or I think it was South Dakota in 2020 voted in adult use cannabis. And then the state Supreme Court vetoed it, which is always dope when the people say, hey, we want this. And then the government says, hey, even though majority want that, fuck y'all. That's really weird. Awesome to see democracy working. But it was interesting that it then failed this time, thinking that it passed last time. You feel like it would pass this time. I have not, excused my ignorance, I have not read enough on that to understand quite exactly what happened in 2020, why that didn't transfer here. That was just an odd call out that I saw. If anyone is hip to that or more privy to that, please let us know in the comments. I would love to educate myself on that. It was just something that seemed really unique to me. Moving on to music news. So 2 weeks ago, we were in Chicago for the KVL International Flower Ball with the 1937 group. There were some issues. That event was canceled by the city. We talked about that last Monday, but they were able to put together another event. They had a really dope lineup set up of just all Chicago artists. Vic Mensa was headlining. They're able to get another venue, still put on that concert. Joey and myself were there. It was a really dope show, really dope. Honestly, from the very first opener all the way to Vic, who closed it out, it was a lot of Chicago pride and a lot of really dope artists. But right before Vic, I believe right before Vic, or somewhere towards the end of the lineup of local artists who I did not know before I went there, was this cat, Booman Forever. Super unique name. He had this dude come out there and intro him in like a suit. And then he just had a crew on stage. It was hard to tell who was actually in his entourage and who he pulled up. During this man's set, jackets were taken off, beanies were taken off, girls were shaking ass, girls were pulled up on stage shaking ass, dudes were up there flashing money, all sorts of shit, man. It was crazy. The DJ was playing all these little Chicago soundbite, vocal bits. It was nuts, man. The vibe during this dude's set was incredible. Again, it was tough for me to even tell who came with this dude, who came for this dude, or who was just totally vibing to this dude's music. The room was packed. I liked all the artists, but we did a little feature on Booman Forever. He just dropped this album and then boom in 2022. So we featured that along with a couple music videos. Again, link in the description. This dude's got crazy sound from your traditional like old head boom bap to some new hype Ray Sherman type stuff to just some melodic, I don't even know, weed smoking music. This dude has got a nice versatile palette of music, and I was a big fan, man. And I'm honestly a hard dude to please, especially the artists I haven't heard about. But I was really liking dude's vibe, and I really liked his album. Digging through there, his album, artist I'd never heard, an album that I kind of stumbled from a show that doesn't happen very often, and the fact that the whole album is fire, that is extremely rare. So definitely go check out Booman Forever, man. And then the Boom, that was a fire album. And if you are in Chicago or ever see that man's name on a lineup, I will just say go check it out. I don't care if he's the headliner, the opener. That dude, I guarantee, is going to put on a show. If the taste of what we saw in Chicago is what he does on a regular basis, that dude is working the stage. Moving on next in music news, Nas drops King's Disease 3. Nas and Hit Boy teamed up for their third edition of King's Disease. Between King's Disease 2 and King's Disease 3, they put out the Magic LP. So Nas and Hit Boy have teamed up for 4 albums in 2 years. Nas is 49 years old. This man is widely regarded as one of the greatest rappers of all time, or the greatest rapper of all time. He has made more money these last decade off investments than he's probably ever made off of music. And he's still out here at 49 years old, putting out 4 albums in 2 years. A lot of from Nas to come out, like the era he came out in, you kind of put an album out, you work it with a tour, you put an album out every couple years. You don't even putting out an album every year was a transition much later in Nas's career to the now this NBA YoungBoy era of like feeding the streets of album, mixtape, to just maximize streaming revenue. It's the era has shifted so many times. And if you listen to Nas's this new album, he talks so much about reminiscing on the old days and the new days and how culture shifts and just his ability to shift within it. And I think just this body of work is clearly a testament to that. As a Nas fan, and I know I'm not the only one of the only criticisms to his legacy over the years has kind of been dude's beat selection, which I got a couple guys. I got to shout out Joey Cash out here in Seattle. He will always stand up and fight for Nas here. So shout out Joey. But some people defend his beat selection. But if you look at his catalog, he's put a lot of music out. Some of it's been experimental. Some of it's been a little stripped down. He's had a lot of classic cuts with hard-hitting beats, but he's also had, in my opinion, a lot of dud beats. When he did the Nasir EP with Kanye West a couple years ago, people were really excited. Hey, we're finally going to get Nas over the beats that we feel like, him and the listeners deserve. That album was pretty whack, but man, we didn't see this team up with Hit Boy come in, and they have put out 4 albums in 2 years of straight fire. Some of Nas's best music to date in his whole career. And just the evolution. I mean, you can't really take away Illmatic, Stillmatic. It was written. A lot of those records from early are classic for a reason, but these new ones are just classic in a whole different regard. But that King's Disease 3, man, is fire. I'm bumping it. I know everyone out there that's, in their 30s like myself or older, I know you're and a hip hop fan, you're likely on it. Curious if you guys tapped in. If you have, what is your favorite one of the King's Disease releases? I like all of them. But I think I might be leaning towards that King's Disease 2, KD2, and the Magic LP a little bit. Those might be my favorites of these 4, but all of them are in rotation. Moving on to the last topic in music for the week. Excuse me. There was an article dropped on XXL about 8 rappers who served in the military. Obviously, we had the holiday over the weekend, November 11th being Veterans Day. So a lot of highlighting, those who have served for this country. Obviously, on the cannabis side, those conversations go hand in hand. Medical cannabis, the veterans community has been a big group that a lot of people have fought for. And then honestly, a group that I think a lot of us owe our respect for, not just for, serving for this country, but also being one of the loudest proponents for legalization and breaking the stigma and the medical and therapeutic benefits for cannabis. I'd say veterans have been one of the largest individual kind of siloed groups that have been on the forefront that a lot of people fought for, but have also fought for us on multiple levels. So, thank you to everyone out there that put in that service. So we're going to look over 8 artists who had served in the military. Freddie Gibbs is the first on the list. Really, that threw me for a loop. I'm a Freddie Gibbs fan, but yeah, I did not know that he served in the military. After he was, let's read this. After being charged with theft and an impending gun charge, he took the ultimatum of contemplating boot camp to avoid jail time. So he went to boot camp stationed in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, but then he failed to adhere to the strict regiment and was dishonorably discharged for smoking weed. So Freddie Gibbs, I'm a big fan of his music. And, if you're going to get kicked out the military, I guess for smoking weed, that's not a disrespectful thing. I know it says dishonorable, but man, we gonna honor Gangster Gibbs. But I didn't know he served. Fresh Kid Ice, man, who was in 2 Live Crew. He enlisted in the Air Force after graduating high school in 82, signed up for a 4-year tour. And then, so while stationed at Air Force Base in Riverside, California, he met the rest of 2 Live Crew. So Fresh Kid Ice, man, he served in the Air Force. And then No Malice. No Malice, let's see. Enlisted in the Army in 92. Did he serve? Serving the rest of his tour, Fort Bragg and Fort Jackson. And then he completed his tour 2 years before being honorably discharged. No Malice is obviously Malice of the Clips. It was originally Clips and Pusha T, pretty famously known for, pushing cocaine before they went famous. And then Malice changing his name to No Malice, finding God, and stopped putting out music that, glorified selling coke. But I did not know he was in the Army, man. So, you learn something every day. MC Hammer, I think I knew this one. So MC Hammer enlisted in the U.S. Navy in the 80s, worked his way up to Petty Officer 3rd class, served 3 years at Moffett Airfield in Mountain View, California, before being honorably discharged and then taking his, his talents to music. And clearly that worked out for the best until he lost a lot of money. Ice-T, I didn't know this either. Ice-T, let's see, he was planning to become a Ranger certified, signed up to become a paratrooper, and then had an honorable discharge. So we say a lot of honorable discharge out here, but that's not always, you get honorable discharge from a ailment, something like that. It's not always like you did. Obviously it's honorable. It's not like you did anything bad, but Ice-T honorably discharged. And this is another one. When I saw this, when I first read Nate Dogg, I never would have guessed that Nate Dogg served. Maybe I should have known that, but he signed up right after high school in 87. He was stationed in Okinawa, Japan. He was honorably discharged after serving 4 years in the Marines. And then after that, he was able to link up with Snoop Dogg, Warren G, and then Nate Dogg became Nate Dogg. It's interesting. Well, how much that man smoked weed. Man, was he smoking weed beforehand, or it's hard to see. Only Gangster Gibbs was the only one that it says on this list that was dishonorably discharged for smoking weed. But Nate Dogg served 4 years in the Marines. I'm sure he was singing when he was out there, man. I'm sure that was a treat to be serving alongside that. So shout out all the veterans that served for us. This was 8 artists. Again, there were some surprises on this list. That rounds up our news for the music section today, and just in general today for this Morning Joint podcast episode. We will be at MJ Biz Con this week, Tuesday through Friday. If you guys would like to meet with us, shoot us a DM, shoot us an email, info@respectmyregion.com. Tap in. We would love to meet with you. We're going to be recording interviews on the floor at the Convention Center Wednesday and Thursday. We're at the Hush after party on Thursday, where we'll be conducting more interviews as well as hosting a podcast. We'd love to see you guys at BizCon or the Hush event. So hope to see you guys there. We'll be back with more content. We got a couple podcasts. I think we have 2 podcasts coming today, and that'll be it this week for the RMR podcast outside of what we're doing at the Hush event. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys a little bit later.